Welcome back to Football Daily. Today we've constructed an 11 of players who went on to manage their clubs. A few absolute legends in this one, stay tuned. Goalkeeper, Nuno Espirito Santo. It's hard to find goalkeepers who turn into top-class coaches. We considered sacked Real Madrid boss Julen Lopetegui, but in the end we turned to Wolverhampton Wanderers, where two of the last three managers are ex-keepers, Walter Zenga and Nuno Espirito Santo. The Portuguese, who was born on the tiny island nation of São Tomé and Príncipe off the west coast of Africa, played in Portugal, Spain and Russia, but never reached the heights of the global game, only managing 199 league appearances in 18 years as a professional. However, he was known as a reliable backup to better stoppers, and he spent 2 periods and 5 years with Porto, playing just 14 times but picking up 4 titles and a Champions League as the understudy to Vitor Bayer in Jose Mourinho's team. He also lifted the Copa del Rey in Spain with Deportivo and was named best keeper in the Spanish second division in 2000, having allowed just 34 goals in 42 games with Minos Merida. His coaching career has been similarly punctuated by highs and lows, as Nuno took Rio Ave to the Europa League for the first time in their history, earned a 4th place finish with Valencia before being sacked the following year, and then spent a solitary season back at Porto, where he failed to end a 4-year trophy drought. Now at Wolves, Nuno is once again establishing himself as one to watch in the future, and has been rewarded with links to Chelsea. Defender, Franz Beckenbauer. It didn't feel great shoehorning him in like this, but as the most versatile player in our backline, Franz Beckenbauer goes in at right back. One of Bayern Munich's greatest ever creations, Beckenbauer started life as a midfielder before converting to centre-back. This helped him to develop a unique skill set as a ball-playing defender, subsequently redefining the libero position. And his excellent leadership on the field saw him captain Bayern to 3 consecutive European Cups and West Germany to a European Championship and World Cup. De Keyser's success as a captain of his club and country in the 70s has basically never been matched, and this kind of elite experience, plus the fact he was one of the great readers of the game, made him perfect management material. Veering from the norm, Beckenbauer's first jaunt into coaching was with the national side, taking the top job aged just 39, just a year after retiring as a player. He took over a side which had failed to progress past the group stage of the 1984 Euros and led them to the World Cup final 2 years later, with the Maradona-inspired Argentina the only thing stopping him. He eventually got his hands on the trophy as a coach in 1990, beating the Albi Celeste in the final with his natural heir Lothar Matthäus as captain. Beckenbauer then went full circle, returning to Bayern in 1993 and winning the Bundesliga before swiftly being elected club president, a position he held until 2009. But if you want to hear more about Bayern Munich and the Bundesliga, subscribe to Football Daily and join the discussion on Sunday Vibes. Defender, Daniel Passarella. While we think of football pre-2000s as being full of 6'4" giants, one of the greatest defenders of the 20th century was Argentina's Daniel Passarella, a 5'8" bruiser who pocketed many of the game's icons, captained his country, and won the World Cup twice. The centre-back featured for Fiorentina and Inter Milan outside his homeland, but truly belonged to River Plate, where he won 6 titles in 9 seasons. Most amazingly, Passarella was also an enormous attacking threat. In those 9 campaigns, he averaged 11 league goals a year, with his best season seeing him net 24 goals in 35 games. He continued that record at national level, scoring every 3 matches, and he remains among Argentina's top 10 goal scorers of all time, while he is the second most prolific defender in football history, beaten only by the Netherlands' Ronald Koeman. The season after he retired, he became River manager and coached Los Millonarios to 3 titles in the following 4 campaigns, moving on to the national side and trying his hand in Uruguay, Italy and Brazil too, before returning for a second stint in the mid-2000s. Having been a player, coach and president at the club, Passarella has become the embodiment of one of South America's defining football teams. Defender, Mauricio Pochettino. Now known for his high-pressing, energetic style of management, Mauricio Pochettino was a little less dynamic as a player, featuring at centre-back for clubs like Bordeaux, a pre-Qatari money PSG, and Espanyol, where he made over 300 appearances across 2 spells. The Barcelona-based outfit first picked the Argentinian up from Newell's Old Boys in his homeland, a club which had signed him at 14 on the recommendation of Marcelo Bielsa, and where he won the only title of his career in 1991. Though Espanyol was hardly a silverware machine, Pochettino did win a pair of Copas del Rey in Catalonia, meaning that during his time there, the club doubled the number of trophies in their 118-year history, and as a result, Poch managed to get into the national team, playing at the 2002 World Cup and winning 20 caps. In 2006, he left Espanyol for the second time, this time for retirement, and earned his coaching badges. In January 2009, sitting 18th in La Liga and having already sacked 2 coaches that season, the Periquitos were forced to take a gamble on a new manager and turned to Pochettino to save them from relegation. His first match was a local derby against Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, which ended in a draw, and they would go on to beat the Blaugrana in the league and beat the drop as well. It was the beginning of a career which could one day rank among European football's best. Defender Bob Paisley. A truly legendary name in European football, Bob Paisley was a left-back who signed for Liverpool at the age of 20 in 1939, just 4 months before the start of World War II. The young defender barely had time to get settled before joining the war effort, signing a contract with a wage of £8 a week and befriending then Liverpool captain Matt Busby, who would go on to coach Man United to the European Cup. Known as a quiet and thoughtful young man, Paisley was drafted into the Allied effort in North Africa, pushing back the German army in El Alamein before heading on to Italy, where he entered Rome on top of a tank as part of the liberating force. At the end of the war, he returned to Anfield, where he helped Liverpool end a 24-year title drought in his very first season, the sole trophy of his playing days. After retirement, he remained with the team, becoming a physio and coach, and earning the trust of legendary manager Bill Shankly. Together, the men masterminded the club's return to the top flight after a 5-year absence, and after Shankly retired, following 15 seasons and 10 trophies, Paisley was named his successor. Amazingly, he improved on his mentor's record, winning 6 titles and 3 European Cups, the first at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, the site of his greatest achievement off the field. He retired in 1983 after 44 years with the Reds, having made them the greatest superpower in European football. Midfielder Antonio Conte. An all-action midfielder, Antonio Conte was born and began his career in Lecce, in the heel of the boot of Italy, but would make his name 1,100 kilometres away in the north of the country with Juventus. The Italian signed for the Bianconeri at just 22, but already had 5 years of top-flight experience under his belt, and immediately made himself indispensable to coach Giovanni Trapattoni thanks to his work rate and leadership qualities. Promoted to the captaincy between Vialli and Del Piero, Conte spent 13 years in Turin, winning 13 trophies including 5 Scudetti and the Champions League in 1996. He was also a losing Champions League finalist on 3 occasions and went on to retire at the club after 419 appearances, a tally beaten by just 12 players in Juve history. But he wasn't done with the game. Conte got his break as a coach at Arezzo, taking over from Maurizio Sarri, and despite a sacking and a relegation, he did enough to get the attention of Bari, whom he took from Serie B strugglers to promotion in 2 seasons. However, it took another 2 years, including a spell at Atalanta, where he repeatedly clashed with ultras, for Juve to take a punt on Conte, and he repaid them handsomely, going unbeaten in his first campaign as Bianconeri boss and delivering 3 titles in a row, the club's first legitimate Scudetti since Conte had been playing for them himself. Midfielder Diego Simeone. One of the world's fiercest defensive midfielders in his day, Diego Simeone gained notoriety in England for committing the foul which led to David Beckham getting sent off at the '98 World Cup. However, in Spain and Italy, the Argentinian was viewed in a far more positive light, playing an integral role in Lazio's second and last Serie A title triumph in 2000 and helping Atletico Madrid win La Liga 4 years earlier, the first such victory in 19 years. And he was arguably at his best in Madrid. While his defensive work contributed to the side conceding the least in the league in '96, he was also a goal threat, with his 12 league strikes the second best in the squad, and more than that of forward Kiko. Fast forward another 18 years and Los Rojiblancos finally added another title to their cabinet, with Simeone in the dugout. When he took over in December 2011, Atleti had won just 5 of their opening 16 league games, had picked up just 1 point away from home, and were conceding nearly 2 goals a game. The transformation since has been remarkable. After all, before Simeone returned to Madrid as manager, the club had never even finished above 4th since lifting the La Liga trophy in '96. In the 6 full seasons since he took the job, they have never finished below 3rd, made 2 Champions League final, and have won 61% of their games during an era of all-time great Barca and Real sides. For context, that's a better win percentage than Fergie and Wenger managed at United and Arsenal respectively. Oh, and they've also moved into a lovely new stadium. Midfielder Zinedine Zidane. After 3 titles and 1 Champions League as a player, Zinedine Zidane has 3 Champions Leagues and 1 title as a manager, despite only having coached for 2.5 seasons. In fact, if it weren't for his staggering international record of a World Cup and European Championship, Zizou's playing career would be much less impressive than his time in the dugout, as he lifted a Liga trophy just once in his time at the Bernabeu, the rest of the time finishing 4th, 3rd and 2nd twice. He also never hit double figures in the league in 10 campaigns at Juventus and Real, only managing it once as a youngster at Bordeaux, but Zidane always turned up on the big occasion, with 10 of his 31 international goals coming at the Euros and World Cups, including 3 in finals and 2 in semis. After retirement in 2006, he continued to put in the hard yards, focusing on charity and humanitarian work, before Jose Mourinho made him an advisor to the Real first team in 2010, which was followed by a stint as director of football. Of course, it took something exceptional to see the Frenchman promoted to manager, and Real's ill-advised appointment of Rafa Benitez and the subsequent dip in performance saw Zidane dropped into the dugout halfway through the 2015-16 season. Florentino Perez's dream of a merengue Guardiola couldn't have worked out better, with a return to the summit of Europe and the promise of another great team in the making. Forward, Johan Cruyff. We could have probably picked an entire team of Barcelona managers who once held the Camp Nou turf as players. Pep Guardiola, Luis Enrique, Ernesto Valverde, the list goes on. But long before all of them came Johan Cruyff, who originally arrived in Catalonia in 1973. Signed for the Blaugrana by total football practitioner Rinus Michels, who had moulded the versatile forward into his talisman at Ajax, Cruyff came to La Liga as Europe's most coveted player, a 3-time European Cup holder and 2-time Ballon d'Or winner. He won just a solitary league title in 5 seasons, but his introduction to the side helped the club morph into flag bearers of modern football methodology, grow their football fan base, and kicked off a tight sporting bond between the Camp Nou and the Amsterdam Arena. As of 2009, a total of 23 footballers have played for both clubs in their careers. He also fell in love with the city and its culture, even naming his son Jordi after the patron saint of Catalonia. And in 1988, he echoed Michels by returning to Barca as manager after a successful stint as Ajax boss. The 80s had seen the club's total football image diminish, with the side becoming more known for dirty tactics and on-field fights, and he changed things up radically. Cruyff built his dream team, which would go on to secure 4 consecutive La Liga titles, win the club its first European Cup in 1992, and become the continent's most admired side along with AC Milan. Perhaps most importantly though, he blooded Pep Guardiola into the team and revolutionised La Masia, leaving a legacy which continues to serve the club beyond his passing. Forward, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Spearheading our starting 11 is a man who became accustomed to coming off the bench while playing under Alex Ferguson at Man United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came to be known as the baby-faced assassin at Old Trafford. Such was his ability to score after being brought on late in games, with only Jermaine Defoe and Javier Hernandez scoring more goals than him as a substitute in the Premier League era. But of course, his most famous contribution came in the '99 Champions League final, coming on with 10 minutes remaining and bagging the winner in injury time. He became one of Ferguson's key allies among the playing staff and took over the club's youth side shortly after retiring. There he coached Jesse Lingard, Paul Pogba and Ravel Morrison among others, and in 2011 he returned to Norway to manage Molde, who he'd played for briefly in the 90s. Fast forward to December 2018 and Solskjaer was back at Old Trafford, and this time in his old mentor's position. A move no one saw coming with the exception of our very own Kieran Carlin. He took over a dressing room toxified by Mourinho, turned around results instantly, and rolled back the years by overseeing an all-time great comeback against PSG in the Champions League. As we speak, he has been recently given the job on a permanent basis. Only time will tell whether he can replicate a fraction of the success he experienced as a player. Forward, Kenny Dalglish. Unlike others in our team, Kenny Dalglish juggled being a player and a manager at the same time, doing so for Liverpool during the 1980s. By the time he took the player-manager's role at Anfield in 1985, he had won 5 league titles, 3 European Cups, and scored 156 goals for the club during its golden era. Sadly for the Scottish forward, his time in the Anfield dugout was bookended by tragedy. He only took the job after the resignation of Joe Fagan, who left the club following the Hazel Stadium disaster, which took the lives of 39 supporters before the European Cup final between Liverpool and Juventus. And after the Hillsborough disaster of 1989, Dalglish was a beacon of strength, attending the funerals of many of the 96 victims. However, unsurprisingly, the disaster took its toll on him emotionally, and he resigned in 1991, not speaking publicly about Hillsborough for another 18 years. During his time as player-manager, Dalglish carried on the legacy laid before him by Shankly, Paisley and Fagan, winning the club its first double in 1986, re-signing Ian Rush and leaving Liverpool as by far the most successful footballing institution in England. Eventually returning to the sidelines in 2012, King Kenny rescued the Reds from their post-Benitez slump, and despite his second stint ending in disappointment, it marked the beginning of the club's revival under the Fenway Sports Group. So that was our team of legendary players who returned to their club as managers, but what did you make of it? Let us know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on screen right now for another great video. See you later.